What are you going to teach me today, Black Mirror?
What are you gonna teach me today, Black Mirror?
Bandersnatch. I don't know where to start with this. I know it's going to go off the rails. I actually took some notes during the watching because there's a lot of different things I wanted to talk about. So we'll see how I get there. It'll be really fragmented, maybe kind of like your movie watching experience. There's not going to be any spoilers or nothing that I would call a spoiler. So get that out of the way. Things with Bandersnatch. I should mention that I've been a fan of Black Mirror long before it came to Netflix. I was introduced to it by my friend Alex a couple of years before it went to Netflix, and that'll be, I think, the topic of another video that I might put on the same day as this. Just Black Mirror in general. I've been a fan. I've consistently liked a lot of what they've done, except for one huge big left turn that I'll talk about in the other video. So the context is I've seen all the Black Mirror stuff, and it doesn't even matter really that much in the context of this movie, although in the movie there are some little Easter eggs that if you've seen the other episodes, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's from that, or like that's funny, like, but they're not like necessary to watch the movie. So I've never really been a fan. Oh, cool! The heater just kicked in. I've never really been a fan of choose your own adventure type books and things like that. In the past, I kind of like just like a linear one, like ending, just from point A to point B with all those type of experiences that I would have. I didn't really have much patience for choose your own adventure stuff because I would have to like reread it, and I just wasn't a fan of like rereading books. And I still don't reread a lot of books to this day. I'd rather just go do something else or like read a different book, I guess. But anyway. So with Bandersnatch, a lot of things that I enjoyed, I'll say that off the bat, but it was not at all what I thought it was going to be like. This whole choose your adventure thing, or choose your own ending, or whatever you want to call it. I thought that the choice making and the result of the choice making was going to be a lot different, so it really threw me off. There's a lot more choices you can make than I thought. I thought you might make like every 20 minutes or something you make a choice and it's a big drastic thing and it'll lead you towards a different ending, different scenes, and different scenarios that would happen, and you have these different storylines. And I thought that was going to be kind of that. But that is not the case. So within the first, I think it was like the first viewing, I think in the first 20 minutes, I got to a point where I made a choice and it was basically the wrong choice because the movie kind of stopped, but it wasn't an ending. So I haven't researched, because I'm not there yet. I might watch it a couple more times and try new things. I haven't researched like, oh, how do you get these other endings and alternate endings and whatever, but I did stumble upon, and I didn't look at the article, but just like the title of it that was in a Google search, so that there was like 5 different like endings, and then it would be like, this is how you get to all of them, and I didn't look at that. But so I know that there are these major endings, and there's a difference when you get to an ending because it will like eventually roll the credits kind of for you, or like in this instance, in the first 20 minutes of the movie, I got to a point where I made a wrong decision, and it brought me to a screen where it gave me a choice to go back and change that decision, or I could watch the credits if I wanted to. And I was like, that's the end? Like, really? Like, that sucks. Like, that's not like an ending, and that's not what I thought would happen. I never thought that you could make a wrong choice and thus have to go back and make the other choice. Like, it forces you to make the other choice in order to continue the film. That really brought me out of the experience. I didn't add to it. It definitely subtracted from it. I thought it was going to be like, oh, you make a choice here, you make a choice there. The fact that there's way more choices than I thought actually wasn't like a negative thing, it was just a thing. But the fact that it just like sometimes will stop you and be like, wrong, go back. If you want to keep watching, if you want to keep this going on with this experience, you got to go back and make a different choice. And like it just so happened the first viewing I did, viewing is obviously interactive, but that it was like 20 minutes in and it was just like over, and that sucked. So then I went back and then made some different choices, and then got stuck again later, and then went back, and then whatever, because it just takes you out of the experience in a way, because you have to consciously think, wait, what choice did I make? And what's going to happen if I make the other choice? And then will that lead to these other choices or not? And like, I ended up maybe restarting the movie only, I don't even think 3 times, maybe just restarting it twice. But there were so many times where you get stuck and then you go back and then you try different things, and like, at some point I got to see some like alternate endings. I know I did not see all of them, and I didn't go and like make all the different choices possible, because there's like some that you don't know how significant the choice is going to be, I guess. I will just say right here, again, this whole thing is just really fragmented, but like that I understand what they're trying to do with the movie. So I appreciate a lot of what was going on, and pretty consistent for Black Mirror that there's a bigger picture and stuff. But I'll get more to that later. So you don't know what kind of choices are going to affect things, which is part of, I think, that grander idea. But I mean, there's little choices like, oh, like a food choice, a choice of food, or like a choice of like listening to something. And there's some things I played with that where it doesn't seem to make a difference, and maybe in some other path it will make a difference. I don't know. But I just didn't think you were going to have those ones, and there's a lot of big choices too, really big choices. So I think that part of what's going on, I mean, is that there's a question of accepting the choice you make. Like, that's a theme of being like, you made this choice, and the viewer, are you accepting the choice you make, or are you going to go back and try it again? Because I could just be like, well, it's the choice I made, and I'm done for today, and like, that's it. Or you feel unsatisfied with that choice, and then you try to go back and change things. And so there's a lot of themes of parallel universes or simultaneous timelines, alternate timelines, simulation theory. There's a lot of stuff going on, like time travel, maybe a little bit, but kind of not. But I think that, yeah, so the whole notion about not accepting choices. Again, this video isn't going in a linear direction, because there's things I know I want to get back to. I think the biggest thing that I learned from it is that instead of thinking of your choices so much, the things that you've made and what you would do to change them, that you should be, you can't, like, if you can't change that, you can't change the thing you just did. I'm not talking about the movie, but life. You can't change that, so focus on the fact that you have to roll with the choice you've made, I guess. Like, you can do things to repair things if you make a mistake, but not really. You can't take the action back. Whatever action you made, it happened, and you can't take it back. You just have to move forward with it and decide how you're going to cope with that decision, how you're going to continue living the rest of your life. So instead of thinking of the choice you made too much, because that results in a lot of things, whether it be anxiety or depression or just like feeling paralyzed and not knowing what to do, just getting stuck, I guess, is a thing too. So, I mean, that was one thing that I walked away from, being like, yeah, I should apply that to my own life a little more, and be like, hey, stop dwelling on the fact that I made the choice, just like, hey, I did it, I screwed up, or whatever it is, and now I need to figure out how to fix it. And that's a pretty basic idea, but that's one thing that it just kind of reminded me of, it got me thinking about. I think that other things that the film did, it was critiquing the idea of entertainment, like the audience's idea of entertainment, or how we should be entertained, or what we think entertainment is, what entertains us. There were moments where that got brought up, so it was a little meta, like the whole thing is very meta, I guess, but there's critiquing of what we think of as entertainment. And that kind of came at one of the endings and one of the avenues you could go down. It got really out there, and it kind of all just fell apart for me with that ending too, of being like, okay, like, I get what you're saying, but is just like critiquing what we as a society or we the viewers are doing, and like how we're I don't know, like I said, it's critiquing the entertainment, I guess, like, or what we think of as entertainment, what we enjoy to watch, and I didn't necessarily like that critique in a way, because like I just didn't identify with it, I guess, being that like, yeah, I just want like blood and guts and action, and that's what entertains me, because it doesn't. Like, that's not the stuff that I go to Black Mirror for. I go to Black Mirror for a way more challenging, like mentally taxing experience, and part of it is entertainment in other ways, but it's not about like action and blood and guts and that type of thing. So yeah, there was that kind of commentary that they were making, or question, I don't know how to word it. Like I said, I already kind of critiqued my main issue with it, and that was the devices they used to interrupt the story. Like, again, I just thought it would have been a better experience if it was just a linear, like, you make choices and then you get to an end every time, rather than stopping you and saying, oh, made the wrong choice, man. But there were all these different branches of things going on, where, like I said, they touched up on simulation theory and alternate timelines and realities that exist parallel, these bigger themes and stuff. But when I was going, I don't know how long, like halfway through my experience, I don't even remember how long my experience was, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and I tried a bunch of different things and went back. But like halfway through or whatever, I was kind of like, wait, what are you teaching me? Like, because Black Mirror usually is very obvious in a good way, that there's usually a clear message, like it all revolves around technology and like stuff that maybe a parallel present or like the future or whatever. But I mean, the message is usually very clear, like, oh, this is what would happen possibly, or this is the direction we're heading, or this is a possibility, or these are problems, these are things, these are conflicts that you need to think about. How would you deal with them? But I was like, I just had this moment, like, what are you teaching me? Because like Black Mirror, I feel like for the most part is a thing that makes me think and challenges me. Thus, it's teaching me something. Even if it's not a direct, like, you should think this thing. It's giving me an opportunity to learn, I guess, put it that way. Things to think about, ponder on, grow. But I just had this moment of like, what is the message? Because there's more than one, right? And I was like, what are you teaching me? And I feel like, I don't know, like a lot of it has to do with choice and the notion of choice. Also funny, again, just ever since I made that video, the conversation piece a couple of days ago about perceptions of reality, that's like a huge theme in the movie too. But I mean, what choices matter to get a different result? I mean, that's a huge thing. Like I said, the whole movie's very meta because you're having an experience, the viewers making choices, and in some of the timelines, the characters are understanding that maybe they don't have choices, and they're questioning their own ability and free will and what that means, and playing with these ideas as to like, does it even matter, or are you stripping away choices from somebody else, and there's an illusion of choice when really all the choices end in the same result. So what's the difference? I think those, like, the themes are clear that it brings up, but there's so much going on that I was like, what are you teaching me? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just not, again, what I would expect from Black Mirror. And there was, I've never like gone into a Black Mirror episode like, what are you going to teach me today, Black Mirror? That's never what it's been like. It's just been like, I know what I'm getting when I watch it, and like, this is just a whole new thing. Not just because it's interactive, but because it was again really fragmented and all over the place in some ways, and it just depends on the choices you make and the experiences you have. There is not a straight path. It is not a linear thing. Like, I think it's very rare that you would go into it, make certain choices, and end up watching for an hour and a half straight and come to an ending and be like, oh wow, cool. Like, every time, like, it just ended up stopping at some point and saying, basically, you done messed up, that wasn't the right thing, you gotta go back. there's some cool things that I really liked besides the little like nods to earlier episodes and Easter eggs, funny little things like that. I was thinking too, like there's some things that maybe I'm just inferring. Like there's so many things in a movie or a show, or whatever, that they're referencing other things, and you don't know what half of them are. But I really liked, like if you've seen Donnie Darko, or if you know me, you know that I love Donnie Darko. There's some like reference to that, I think, or like I'm getting a reference to it because there's a bunny, like a plush bunny that's in the movie. Depending on the timeline, I guess, but I think it's in most of them. And there's also this talk about mirrors and what mirrors can possibly do, and there's like scenes in Donnie Darko that deal with the rabbit and deal with mirrors and again, perception of reality in Donnie Darko as well. I didn't realize this is such a reoccurring theme in my life, because I never really thought about it that hard before this past week. So I guess I can stop talking so loud now. So that was like a fun little thing that for me, at least that's what I got. I was like, oh, Donnie Darko, because Donnie Darko has its own thing about fate, and choices and changing things, time travel, changing your own future, being your own, for lack of a better word, being your own god, or creating your own destiny. So that's kind of in there too, and that just adds to like, oh, okay, like they're playing with this idea. But this other thing that I was thinking of is like, in the first little bit of watching it, I was like, Bandersnatch is going to be this thing that is going to be like the Necronomicon from H.P. Lovecraft, I think, where it's not a real book, like, right? Like it wasn't ever a real book, and then it gets referenced in movies as this thing and whatever, and it goes back to like H.P. Lovecraft, and like, it's referenced as this object that wasn't created by H.P. Lovecraft anymore. It just gets referenced as like outside of him, and like the way that he introduced it. It goes outside of that, and it's referenced in movies and other things, and it's just like, no, it's this thing, and like without even, I think people can know about the Necronomicon and what it's supposed to be, like without actually knowing its origins, and so it becomes this canon thing in a way that doesn't go back to its origins, or its inception. And I think that's what Bandersnatch is going to be a little bit of too, is that it's going to become this canon thing in a way where we're going to get referenced. Like I was thinking, like, wow, I would like to play with this idea and use like maybe a title or a line or something to create some visual art and reference that thing, because I think that it symbolizes a lot, again, with all these different ideas that it explores. So I thought that was like a thing where I think it's powerful enough that it will do that, which is really saying something. I just think that that's what it's going to be, that it's going to be referenced like a cultural touchstone in a way, for a while. And man, I don't really know where else to go. I overall, I guess if I want to like get off the fence of whether I liked it or not, I kind of already said, like, it's worth watching. I enjoyed the questions that it raised for me, but it wasn't smooth. It was a really bumpy ride because it wasn't as linear as it could have been, where it's like choice leads to choice leads to choice leads to end. It was like choice to choice to choice to dead end. I know that there's a purpose behind that though, so I mean, it's just one of those things that maybe you want to think about deeper and try it again and again and again and do it a couple times. There's reasons as to why they do things. Like, part of me thinks this is like, it was kind of sloppy or a misstep in doing that because my experience wasn't good. However, I'm also reading into the fact that they did create those dead ends, and maybe there isn't a reason for that. But I mean, generally, their quality has been so consistently great over their other episodes that everything's so intentional and well thought out that, for the most part, that I assumed that these dead ends and the way they did it would be too, but it just didn't enhance my experience that much. I would for sure say watch it, give it a shot, spend some time with it, go through it multiple times. It's interesting, but it's not something I'd want to like rewatch either. Whereas most episodes of Black Mirror I could rewatch with somebody, but this was more tiring and kind of mentally taxing, and can be exhausting depending on how you choose to have your experience. but I really liked the questions that it raised. Just like I said, it was very meta. I feel like to get a lot out of it, it'd be great to watch it with someone else and have a conversation with them about what's going on. But also, depending on how long you try, if you try to do it all in one sitting, which is kind of what I did, like not make every single choice like different than the last, but like try to like get a bunch of endings without necessarily restarting every time. Like I just think that maybe that was too much, and that was part of my choice and my decisions that I made when watching the movie. Like I said, I do want to talk about Black Mirror. Just Black Mirror I want to talk about as well, so you might get 2 reviews this week. But yeah, it's a thing. Bandersnatch is a thing, and you should definitely watch it if you're into like dark dystopian stuff. Also, it's not even that dystopian though. It's just, I mean, I assume that you're not coming to Bandersnatch without watching any other Black Mirror episodes first. But yeah, interactive stuff. I guess the other thing too is that it brings up this thing of like, wow, is Netflix going to do this more? Are they going to have more interactive movies and kind of refine maybe their process a bit? Getting some feedback from this experience and how they put it out. Maybe they'll do more. What is that going to look like? I don't think I'm that excited to, like I said, to do it more. Like, if it's the only way I could watch that thing, then I guess I would. I like the option of the alternate endings. I was more excited about it at the beginning, but going through the dead ends, I just lost my excitement for it. But I was still so curious about getting other results that I kept going with it. Not curious enough to try every single avenue, though. But that's just me. So those are my thoughts on Bandersnatch. Long-winded, as per usual. But with that, I will see you on another time.